Okay, so I'll get my screen set up. So I have just a few slides to sort of explain what CityCamp is and how you can participate. Great. So, hi everyone. I'm Nicole Dan. I'm Vice President of Florida Community Innovation, and I'm also on the board of Alliance of Civic Technologists. But I'm here today to talk about CityCamp, which is a global movement for community-focused events. It's interesting. Both CityCamp and I have a Chicago connection. I was born in Evanston, and CityCamp, the first CityCamp, was in Chicago. So that's just an interesting fact. So today I'll preview some of the background of CityCamp, what the format is, and how you can participate. So, as I said, CityCamp is a global movement of community-focused events that foster civic collaboration and innovation. These events bring people together to improve their communities. Anyone interested in local issues can organize one. And really, it can be about anything, but there are just a few interest areas which are highlighted on CityCamp's website. But it can include arts, education, civic tech, economics, health, housing. And what's great about it is the planning is truly collaborative, both with people that are planning the event together in that city and also between city camps. You can learn from other city camps and how they're planning their event and use that to plan your own. So some history. As I said, the first one was hosted in Chicago in 2010 by Kevin Curry and Jen Palka. Kevin and Luke then developed it as an open source brand, so anyone can host these events anywhere. And since then, they've been organized worldwide. So that's just some background. The format for these events is an unconference. So that means the people attending have a lot of input in the schedule, and they can create and organize their agenda with help from facilitators. Overall, the theme of CityCamp is just to make communities more open and welcoming and really focus on the things that can help improve the daily lives in local governments and community groups. So the goal is building relationships within the community. And it's really just an excuse to reach out and say, hi, we're here, we're working on this thing to improve local government, and kind of encourage that community building and building local teams to find smart ways to solve issues. Really, I see it as a way of inspiring volunteerism and just getting people to sort of be more interested in contributing towards civic tech and iterating on these everyday problems in communities. So that brings me to the Alliance of Civic Technologists. So this year, we're working with CityCamp to bring it back as an organizing partner to host events across the country. If you look at the list of where CityCamps are currently hosted, you'll see a lot of overlap with where there are Alliance of Civic Technologists member organizations. And that's because we're trying to encourage our member organizations to host these events in their own cities at whatever scale that they're able to. So as you may have heard, ACT is a decentralized network of civic technology volunteer organizations, really focused on just growing local volunteer civic tech. So chapters in Atlanta, San Francisco, Chi-Hack-Knight's member organization. So just really using our network of member organizations to encourage this return of CityCamp. So over time, these were hosted around the world, Argentina, Canada, Chile. You can see all these places on the map. So in the past, they've been hosted in different countries. Right now, we do know of an event later this month that's sort of along the similar theme to CityCamp that'll be hosted in Toronto called Civic Spark. So that's not a CityCamp event, but it's along similar lines. So it's still sort of a mutual spirit of civic tech volunteerism. So World CityCamp Day is the third Saturday in September. So this year, that would be September 20th. Really, one of the beautiful things about CityCamp is how decentralized it is and how it can be focused on what each local community, what's best for them, and tailored specifically to what that community wants to do. So that means that while World CityCamp Day is September 20th, really you can host them whenever. We have some communities hosting them earlier in September, some later, really just dependent on what's going on, whether, maybe there's a conflict with their school schedule or sports, or maybe they just had a good deal on a venue. Whatever the reason may be, you can host a city camp on whatever day is best for you. Um, so and again, some cities hosted them throughout the year, and some just use the city camps to plan future events as well. It really can be used for whatever purpose is best for your organization. So how can you participate? So as I mentioned, there are some existing city camp events around the country, and you can also register your own. And when you register your own, you get to be a part of a sort of network of other people who are hosting city camps in their area, and you can share ideas and think about what would be best for your city camp. So, for example, a few weeks ago, we had our ACT Congress, and each of the participants was able to share. For example, New York City was able to share what they're doing all day. They're hosting an all day event. Some of the other organizations, like I know Florida Community Innovation, we're going to be hosting a half day event in Gainesville. Still super helpful to hear what everyone is doing and how they're scaling it to what their organization can do, and basically how we can share ideas. So I think that that's an important part of CityCamp as well. So that's one of the benefits that you get by registering your event on CityCamp's website. So another aspect of sort of the CityCamp ethos is just sharing ideas constantly. So we have our CityCamp playbook, which is a living document. Luke started it, and we've been iterating on it ever since. So it includes agendas, planning checklists, social media posts, outreach emails. Any aspect of CityCamp you can think of, someone has probably written about it or planned about it. And usually the way this gets compiled is someone will share it in Slack, and then it gets added to the playbook. So it's just a really beautiful way to share and think about, rather than just staring at a blank screen, you can use our template letter to city officials and start from there and tailor it as necessary. So it's very helpful, and you can find that on the CityCamp website as well. We also have our weekly organizing calls, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. CST. So these calls just help us collaborate and share ideas. And like I said, it helps us think about maybe outreach to city government hasn't gone well. Then you can think about what nonprofits can you reach out to, or how can you get a better presence in local media? What can you do about potential unconference sessions? One thing that Florida Community Innovation was thinking about is, what do we do to encourage unconference sessions? So when we posed that idea, someone suggested, well, collect those ideas in registration forms. So that's what we've been doing. And also we've been thinking about what can we set up so that there are backup session ideas. And so we can still fill out a full day of programming regardless of how many potential unconference ideas that we get. So just thinking about things like that, sharing ideas on fundraising, these calls are super helpful, just to bounce ideas off of each other. So lastly, you can connect with CityCamp on any of the following mediums. The website has a ton of resources. Like I said, the brand guide, the playbook, any kind of assistance you would need. You can also join the Slack, again, for some of that community and sort of brainstorming together. And we also have other social media accounts here. So that's all for my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks for that information. And as we transition into Q&A, I'd like to encourage folks to continue adding questions in the Zoom chat. And I'll get started with the first question. First question is, we'd love to hear more about you, your background, how you became involved with CityCamp.
Yeah, so I became involved with CityCamp through ACT. Chris Whitaker brought up the idea of collaborating with Luke to bring back CityCamp. So that's kind of where that idea came from, and I just think it's a really beautiful way to bring back the spirit of volunteerism in civic tech and kind of get us back to engaging in person.
Thanks. And just to add on a little bit to that question and answer, would you mind to say a little bit more about ACT for folks who might be a little bit less familiar? I know you touched on it a bit earlier in the presentation, but would you mind a little bit on what ACT is all about?
Yes. So ACT is a collection of member organizations that are focused on local civic tech efforts. So, for example, I'm a part of Florida Community Innovation, and we're based in Gainesville. But there are other organizations around the country, such as there are different ones in Atlanta and other parts of the country as well. And that comes from a lot of these organizations also have existed for a while under other umbrella organizations like Code for America. And so we're really just bringing back that spirit of collaboration and sort of an umbrella for all of these organizations to organize under.
Oh, thanks. And another question is about how can we help?
How can you help? You can host a city camp in Chicago or wherever you're tuning in from. Um, and we'd be happy to help you, like I said, with our resources. And I will share the slides so that everybody can get the links as well.
And maybe a question that I had to add on to the question about how can we help. If someone's curious about maybe getting involved, maybe hosting, but isn't quite sure what that would look like, what's the best way for them to get more context about what it would be like, what it would entail to be someone who could host
Yes.
City?
So if I wanted more context on this, I would start with the CityCamp website and just like reading through, looking at the playbook and things like that. People can also reach out to me. My email is, I'll put it in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me, and you can also I can forward you the invite for tomorrow's call. We host them weekly on Wednesdays, like I mentioned, and we can just discuss what that idea would entail, answer more questions in depth. Maybe if you had any specific questions about what it could entail, we'd be happy to get started there.
Sounds good. Thanks.
How has the unconference format been working? Um, I think it works pretty well. We actually did. I think it works even better in person. But we had at our ACT Congress a few weeks ago. The way we did it was through a Word doc, and it was just the voting was instead of dot voting like with stickers, we did little stars next to the idea that you liked the best. Um, I think that worked pretty well. And so I think the unconference format may just need to be adjusted depending on how many ideas you get, what sort of participation you get. Like I mentioned, for us in Gainesville, we're thinking about what could be those backup ideas for maybe things that we can do during sessions if we don't have ideas to fill in that time. We do have a few things in mind, but we're thinking about what we can do to fill those lulls or invite people to speak and things like that. But also I think the unconference format will work. So.
Cool. And if I could ask a little bit more about the unconference format itself, I think many folks on the call probably are familiar with more of a traditional conference format, and the unconference paradigm seems quite different. And I was wondering if there's a particular philosophy behind what unconference is all about.
Um, are these in person only? I suppose you could have a virtual component to it as well. There's no it could be in person or virtual as well. Um, Sorry, I got distracted from that. But your question was about the unconference format. I think that an unconference can be kind of implemented in many different ways. And I think there isn't any really underlying philosophy to it. I think that the point of that is that we want the agenda setting to be collaborative. So I think that that's the underlying hope with an unconference, whether that means voting ahead of time or voting in person the day of, or maybe asking people for a few slides ahead of time, whatever that means for your organization is fine.
Thanks. Another question is, you mentioned a local civic tech focus for city camps. And at the same time, CityCamp seems to be growing into a global phenomenon. You mentioned several other cities that are involved. How do city camps collaborate with one another, if at all?
Yes. So the way we collaborate with one another is through our weekly meetings. So as I said, we have those on Wednesdays, but we're also in Slack together. So often what will happen, for example, a few weeks ago, Atlanta shared their 90-day plan of how they're going to sort of what they need to do before they're hosting city camp. So including fundraising, outreach to the city, outreach to venues, things like that. They shared that in Slack, and then a lot of us have used that to plan our own events. That's one place that collaboration happens, or it can happen in those meetings. So that's mainly how the collaboration occurs too.
Great. Thanks for adding on about the collaboration part. Another question was, what inspired CityCamp to start, and is there kind of an origin story for the organization?
I was not involved in the origins of it. I do know that it was, started sort of inspired by fostering innovation at a local level. That's mostly what I know. I know there's more about the history in the playbook that's available on CityCamp's website.
Well, has CityCamp, are you able to talk about any kind of challenges that CityCamp has faced, given the current political climate?
Yeah, so I think that actually that has been um, part of how we're able to, part of why volunteerism is so important in this moment is actually the challenging political climate. So I think that that's been something that's helped us kind of get more interest in it. And, I hope that will help us gain more interest for this. Um, in terms of challenges, I think that what's been very helpful is an ability to share these challenges across organizations. And so, not every city camp is going to be the same. Some of them are able to be sort of more sophisticated or like have more resources and things like that, and that's fine. And others are going to take a more of a half day approach. And I think that it's been very helpful to share those and discuss what we can do to address the idea of, maybe there's a dearth of unconference ideas. How do we address that? But on the political front, obviously, I think that it'll be helpful to get more people to attend, to get them more interested in what's going on in their community.
Great. What what have outcomes been so far for CityCamp? What are the desired outcomes of the future? And if it's about developing projects that we think will help something in the world, what projects have been built and what have been the impacts of those projects?
So I don't know much about the things that were built that helped that made an impact. I think that a lot of organizations have used it as a deep dive sort of hackathon time. So to sort of work on things that they're already building. I know that in Gainesville, that's one of the things that we will be doing is doing sort of those tasks that we need to help build our Florida resource map. And so it'll be our opportunity to collaborate on that. I don't think anything is going to be built in one day at our city camp, but it's certainly a time for us to kind of sit together and do these and make it more fun. Some of those more menial tasks, make them more fun and get them done. And then some of them are so crucial to some of these tools that we're building. So I don't have any specific examples, but I do know that we will. I know that on the FCI side that we will be doing things that impact our current work. So I suspect that that's what they did in past years as well.
Thanks. And I'm just looking at that response about the FCI slide. Yeah, would you mind saying a little bit more about the FCI side of CityCamp?
Sure. So I can tell you right now what we're planning in terms of a schedule. So as I said, ours will be a half day. And we're thinking in the first hour, we're hoping to invite some speakers, either from the city or other sort of nonprofit groups, to sort of get us kind of set the agenda for the day and help us think about what it's all about. Then throughout the day, we will have unconference sessions or speakers as we find them. And we already have some students. Florida Community Innovation has a lot of student representation. We're mainly based at University of Florida. And so we've already had some students suggest some ideas for topics. So I'm encouraging them to present them as unconference topics. That's something we're going to be working on in the coming weeks. And the last session of the day is something where we want to talk about, sort of to close out, we want to talk about our values and the future of FCI, and things like that. But in the background, while all of this is happening, we also want to get any help we need for our current project. So like I said, the Florida resource map, doing any of the tasks that we need to get that across the finish line. We also our organization is kind of split between we have a lot of coders and a lot of non-coders. We're also hoping to get some help on our fundraising efforts. So we're thinking about doing some direct mail fundraising during that time as well. So just thinking about different tasks people can do throughout the day, and all sort of toward our common goals.
And in terms of potentially inspiring folks who might like to be presenters, I'm wondering if you have any examples in mind that you could share of ideas that have come in so far
Yes.
for
So
presentation.
so one of them was there was a student that threw out an idea about the idea of TurboTax for federal benefits. So I think that could be an interesting idea in terms of an unconference, talking about what are the barriers to that, what are the possibilities there. Um, I think the other thing we've been thinking about is can we reach out to our health department, the Alachua County Health Department, and have them talk about what are some opportunities for civic tech there. So those have been a lot of our ideas, and also thinking about what we can do to incorporate what are the ethical issues that are surrounding the use of AI with our Florida resource map. So just thinking about that, it's really a time to discuss, and so I think it's a good venue for kind of bringing up those thornier issues and getting ideas from people.
And then if there's someone who's thinking about participating in a city camp for the first time, and maybe this is their first time to participate in kind of an unconference, is there anything you would say in terms of what to expect, what it looks like to be engaged in an unconference as compared to what it feels like to be engaged with like a conference kind of format?
I think the main difference is so when you come to a conference, you have a set agenda, you know, like when exactly things are happening. I think with an unconference, you more know that there's like an overarching theme, or at least an agreed upon sort of topic. And then from there, the unconference topics are really not set in stone until the day of. And so I think that kind of makes it different. That unconferences are, I guess, more discussion, more participant based. There may be some presentation element to it, but overall, it's about what the participants are interested in and what they want to discuss. And I think that it's beneficial that we're able to share ideas with each other and pick topics that everyone is interested in and sort of come to a consensus on a topic to discuss at least. I think that's what makes the unconferences different is instead of being told the schedule, you get to form the schedule.
And you mentioned that there's likely to be an overarching theme for a given conference session. Could you elaborate a little bit more on how the theme gets chosen for city camp?
Well, for CityCamp, I wouldn't say that there is like a we had discussions about whether there should be a theme or not, and I think that's kind of an open issue for future years. We may have one. I think for this year, we wanted to really focus on just bringing the event back and getting everyone engaged, and then I think maybe next year we'll pick back up on the topic of whether CityCamp itself should have an overarching theme. But I do think the theme is encouraging volunteerism and just uh, civic collaboration and innovation. That's the overall theme of CityCamp. But if there would be a more specific one in future years, that's to be determined based on our feedback from this year.
Thanks. I think I've covered all the questions. And as a final question, on a closing note, are there any messages or themes that you'd like to leave us with about CityCamp?
Yes, I'd like everyone to remember that you're not alone. We will help you, and just really that the spirit is very collaborative. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And Luke, one of the founders of CityCamp, also happy to answer any of your questions. Um, oh, one of the outstanding questions that I just got in the chat: how does CityCamp promote the local events, or do we have to do that ourselves? Um, so CityCamp doesn't promote the events. We have them on our site. When you fill out the form, it'll get put on the events portion of our website. But each group would need to sort of promote the event themselves. I mean, we will post it on our social media and things like that, but I think that most of the onus for the promotion goes towards each organization. But yeah, I would just like to leave you with the idea of it's very collaborative, and we want to help everyone be successful. And just you sharing your question, someone else may have had the same question. So I think that that's kind of the beautiful part of CityCamp.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for the questions, and thanks especially to tonight's presenter. Thanks, Nicole, for the great information about CityCamp. So switching gears a little bit, we'll